Vivek Ramaswamy had Ann Coulter on his show, and on his show she told him to his face she wouldn't vote for him because he's brown. Now, me personally, y'all know I'm a Democrat, you guys know I'm a liberal, but I have zero sympathy for Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'm going to explain why. Frankly, I found this hilarious, insightful, enlightening, entertaining, among many other, positive adjectives that I can think of. This video was hilarious to me, don't you see? Vivek, thank you so much for this entertaining clip. Thank you so much for tasting what most conservatives of color will eventually taste, which is the reminder that you are racist white conservatives. I won't call them all racist, but the specific racist type, you are just pawns on their chessboard. So I'm going to play the clip. We're going to watch Vivek's interaction with Ann Coulter. And I promise you, this is one of the funniest clips I've ever seen. Ann Coulter already comes out the gate guns blazing with racial jokes, and it's just a bad look all around.
Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I too am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory.
Why is she like
that was a
this?
great opening set.
Why is she like? Bro, she too old to be like Ann Coulter. You too like, bro. I mean, it's funny, but it's like, bro. It's like, bro. Why did she do this type of shit, bro?
I mean, lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that. And it's directly
Hold up. Like, you can't tell a grown-ass man on his show, I won't vote for you because you're Indian. We'll get back to that. Ann Coulter, you're an amazingly racist woman. As a liberal, as a democratic black man, for some reason, I still view you as a toxic and chaotic national treasure. But, like, you can't just disrespect this man on his show. Well, you can. Thank you for doing it, by the way, very much. But come on, like, be respectful. You already just came on this man's show, blasting race jokes about black folk and being articulate. Now you come out guns blazing. Like, Ann Coulter, like, sometimes I forget, like, how crazy she actually is. But everybody gets the smoke from Ann Coulter, so it's hard to feel bad for Vivek. And there's even more of a reason to not feel bad for Vivek. But her saying she won't vote for this man because he's brown within 2 minutes of her within 2 minutes of her just being on the show. They didn't get comfortable and drink mimosas and, tell each other, deep, dark secrets and eat snacks together. No, it's been a minute, maybe even less than 2. And she automatically wouldn't vote for you because you're Indian. We'll get back to that. Ann Coulter's a character. But unfortunately, it's a real character. She's not playing. And look at Vivek, bro. He didn't see that shit coming. He was laughing when she was talking about, being articulate and how you can't say that about black Americans and blah, blah, blah. He was laughing, but she dropped that little bomb on him.
It's what you were just talking about. The thing about nationalism, you're totally right. It is like, to use the word nationalism, oh, it's Hitler, it's Hitler. And Hitler had soup. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have soup. Mm-hmm. Hitler loved dogs. That doesn't mean you shouldn't love dogs. So I think we have to move past this. If Hitler did it, it must be bad. But I do notice when I was listening to your monologue, I don't think I do use the word nationalism. I would use a word you used in your monologue, which I liked quite a bit, and that's citizenship. There's citizenism. How about Americanism?
Yeah.
I'd also point out that the only people who are not allowed to be proud of their ethnic group do tend to be Anglo-Saxons. Oh boy, you can't be proud of being white. Whereas, watch a soccer game and see, it's Venezuela, we're Mexicans. It's funny, Hispanics don't even think of themselves as Hispanics. They think of themselves as the country they're from. I think French feel very proud to be French. We saw Macron expressly objecting wokeness on the grounds that this is an American institution. We're not going to import this. So you do see basically every other ethnic group very proud of their ethnic group. And the thing I'd say about America, okay, no single cuisine, but you can get Chinese food and Mexican food in Paris and Tokyo. Food has definitely migrated across countries. There is a core national identity that is the identity of the WASP. And that doesn't mean we can't take anyone else in, a Sri Lankan or a Japanese or an Indian. But the core around which the nation's values are formed is the WASP. We've never had a president.
You know what's crazy? Is she actually told this man in the beginning, you're like, you had so many ideas and perspectives that you brought to the table that made me like you more than any of the other candidates, but I wouldn't vote for you because you're Indian. Vivek, if you're listening to this, and I hope you do, I hope somehow this video reaches you. I hope you're in good standing as well when you receive this take from me, if you ever do. I think the same thing about you, Vivek. I'm not even a Democrat. I'm not even a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal, but I think the same thing about you. I think you were the best Republican candidate that they had. Well, actually, you're you're inferior to Nikki Haley. I'm not gonna lie. She's better at acting white. You were a way better character. You were a way better candidate than any other candidate for the Republican nomination. However, these people won't vote for you because you're brown. You had 3 delegates when you ran. Only 3. Only 3. You had no scandals like Trump. You weren't a fat Trump 2.0 version like DeSantis who gets caught up in all these ridiculous legal battles in his home state. You weren't known as an establishment hack like Nikki Haley, which I love Nikki Haley. I love establishment politicians to death. I just do. But you had everything going for you. You were self-made, billionaire, or whatever you are, multimillionaire. You're a rich guy. You're an immigrant. You're the American dream personified. A child of immigrants who made it financially incredibly successful. No scandals, no legal issues, no criminality, no crazy tweets on social media, and yet you still weren't good enough. You still weren't good enough. I'd argue you were better of a candidate than DeSantis. And yet DeSantis was able to stick around longer than you. DeSantis got more delegates than you. Why is that, Vivek? Why is that? Why is it that conservatives who cry all day long about diversity programs, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, oh my God. And look, to be fair, to some extent, they're right. Someone who's black shouldn't, or brown, or I don't know why I said black or brown, combination. Just because someone's black or brown doesn't mean that they should automatically get a position. I agree. But what's funny is that when someone whose everything they want is handed to them on a silver platter, Vivek, they still aren't good enough. You weren't good enough. You had everything a Republican candidate needed. And on top of that, you were brown. You were the ultimate package. You were the we're not racist package times 1,000. There was no reason for Republicans to be concerned about you being their candidate. You were perfect. You're a religious man. I believe, is Vivek Hindu or Buddhist? I think he's a Buddhist. Regardless, from what I've heard, you're a religious guy. You're a man of faith. You may not be a Christian, but you are a man of faith. You believe in something. You were the perfect package. Family man, married man, religious man, financially successful man, no crimes, no crazy tweets, no drama, not trying to imitate another grown man, not an establishment, hack or whatever, or rhino. You were a populist dream. Well, except you're not white, but you get my point. And yet you still weren't good enough. Are you getting the picture is my question. Are you getting the picture? Despite being the perfect candidate, your race made it impossible for you to be the nominee amongst conservatives. You speak perfect English, you don't have an accent, regardless of your name being Vivek Ramaswamy. You are an American. I think you're an American. I do. I think you are an American. But there's a significant portion of the people that you cater to who don't think you're an American. And you need to contend with that. You need to acknowledge that. And if you're going to run for office again, this moment on your channel, you will have to address this. Because I'm going to pull up a clip of you acting like racism doesn't exist in this country. I'm going to pull up a clip of you acting like white supremacy doesn't exist in this country. And it's funny because you say in the clip that it's never happened to you, you've never encountered it, therefore it must be equivalent to running into a unicorn. And now here I am reacting to a video in which a white woman with bleached blonde hair and bright blue eyes is telling you she wouldn't vote for you despite you being the perfect candidate because you're Indian.
didn't have at least partial English ancestry. Never. We've only had one Catholic president. There was only one Catholic signatory to the Declaration of Independence. They were all not only Protestants, but pretty much Presbyterian. King George referred to the American Revolution as that Presbyterian War. So there is a lot in the freedom thing. Samuel Huntington of Harvard has written about this in a fantastic book I recommend to everyone, Who Are We? And he describes how, back in colonial times, interestingly enough, for example, Jews could vote, but Catholics couldn't because people thought they would be more loyal to Rome. Once they became more American Catholic and less Roman Catholic, then they were just, part of us and part of Americans. But you do notice, and he describes why so many countries that have not done very well are dominated by Catholicism. It's much more from the top down. It lends itself to an authoritarian governance, whereas Calvinists, it's between you and God. And moreover, because of the Presbyterian, I think every ethnic group has this, the WASP work ethic and the Jewish work ethic, and I'm sure there is an Indian work ethic, but specifically with Presbyterians or Protestants, let me put it that way, and the Calvinism, even though might not be theological.
What is bro? I swear to God, when I was in Bible class in high school, I had to define Calvinism. I know for a fact that what is Calvinism, bro? I know I had to do a homework assignment on it. I just can't remember what it was.
True, but the idea that you are part of the chosen and you prove that by being successful, it's almost the reverse in Catholic countries, not so much this country because American Catholics have basically become Protestants. And that is this worship of being poor, as if you are closer to God because you're poor. That's not the way to create a on-the-go developing country.
Mm-hmm. No.
Well, didn't Jesus literally say, sell all your belongings and follow me? Okay, look, and Coulter's not wrong. Obviously, giving up all your belongings and becoming a Christian monk is probably the opposite way to develop a burgeoning and rich and wealthy, hardworking nation. But come on, Jesus did say in his book to sell all your belongings and follow him. It's easier for a rich man. It's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. Jesus, according to the Bible, I can't say he for sure said it because I'm not going to put words in Jesus' mouth, but the Bible says he said it. So with that being said, I'm just saying are the Catholics really wrong for believing what Jesus said in the Bible? I'm just saying. Now let's see what Vivek has to say in response to this blatant disrespect.
I think that's an interesting tour through that historical lane, but I want to pick on one point you said, which is citizenship, right? Let's talk about what does it mean to be a citizen of a nation. And it's interesting, if a lot of people trip up on this, they'll say, well, it means what you get, right? Do I get to vote or do I get some other claim? And that doesn't really work. Actually, if you look through most of American history, for example, women were citizens long before women could vote, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not about what you get. In my book, and I think that this is true with the American conception of citizenship, I think it's true of the Roman conception of citizenship, is it's about your loyalty, actually.
Yes.
To whom do you actually pledge loyalty? And so I think you and I share that in common, actually. I don't know, I've never asked you this, Dan, but I assume from seeing the things you said, tell me if I'm right about this, you're probably against the existence of dual citizenship as a concept. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yes. You and I share that in common.
Outrageous.
It's incoherent. It's not just outrageous. It's incoherent. It's oxymoronic. How could you possibly have a loyalty to two different nations where the essence of citizenship is which nation to whom you had your undivided loyalty? That's what the essence of citizenship is all about. So you and I agree on so much there. But
what the hell are these two talking about? If dual citizenship was that much of a problem for national security, we would have never allowed it. I will say this much. Dual citizenship amongst people in Congress, to me, is a problem. If you're a dual citizen and you're running the country, you need to figure out you can't be passing laws, having, classified information being given to you. That's unacceptable to me. I'm not a fan of that. So I agree to an extent. If you're going to be an elected official in this country, especially on a federal level, you must be an American citizen and an American citizen only. That should definitely change.
I wouldn't say lose you, but I may fail to fully understand you, is on that axis of citizenship, what does ethnicity have to do with the matter? And I think you would be well served, and maybe this could be a great platform for you to do it, to make the case for why that, what you put at WASP basis for the American identity, how is that relevant against a backdrop of which you got the WASP seventh generation descendant of some rich guy on the Upper East Side in Brooklyn that pretends to hate this country because it's the cool thing to do, versus somebody who came here as the kid of immigrants but pledges loyalty to this country? If loyalty was the axis for citizenship, aren't you actually committing a bit of a sin, reverting back to a conception of citizenship that has nothing to do with loyalty in the first place?
No, she's not. Vivek, let go, let go, let go. Just let go. I'm telling you, you're not white. No matter how much they sit there and say, yeah, we're tired of those white kids who, act like they hate America, they will always give those white kids more grace than they will give you. The sooner you realize that, buddy, the better. You are a pawn on the board. Those white kids partying, man, fuck America, I hate America. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant Americans will always have their arms open to those kids forever. Let's just be honest, okay? Don't start thinking because you're actually loyal that these people are going to prioritize you over white kids who hate on America because it's cool. I don't care what Ann Coulter says after this little sentence you just gave. You need to realize your race is what's most important to these people. To them, your race is everything. And you receiving so little votes, so little delegates in the running for the nomination, you should have realized it then. You should have realized in that moment that no matter what you did, no matter how much you accomplished, you're just brown to them, G. You're just bro. These people went kicking and screaming into an Obama presidency. Barack Obama is not even Black American. His father's Kenyan. There's never been a descendant of slaves president in American history ever. Barack Obama is half Kenyan and half white American. That man was half white, and conservative white Americans, some of them went kicking and screaming into his presidency because he was Black. And you think someone who has no European ancestry, no ancestry to this country, you think they want you to be president? Stop. Stop. Barack Obama was 10 times as classy and as presidential as Donald Trump, and these WASP conservatives who, care so much about WASP lineage and WASP culture, they couldn't stand Barack. They still love Trump to death, and Barack has proven himself to be 20 times the man, the president, the leader that Trump has ever been, and they still love Trump. It's about race, G. Realize and recognize. When these people tell you and show you who they are, believe them the first time. The problem is you're stuck. You're stuck, and we're going to get into why you're stuck in a second.
Well, I will say many of those seventh generations WASP I definitely hate. I know we have a lot of really, really bad ones, but like I said, anyone can adopt this. I guess what I just said, if any of your children marry a DAR, I would definitely vote for them for president.
What is a DAR? What is DAR? Daughters of the American Revolution? Okay, so I'm not understanding. Is Ann Coulter saying she so if Vivek's child married and had children with if Vivek's son, I guess he has a son, married a German American woman, her parents came from Germany a generation before, would his children still not be eligible to run? Do you have to be specifically of founding stock? Do you have to be of specifically founding American stock? Of course you have to be white, because even I can trace my ancestry to the white people who founded this country. Like, almost every Black American can trace their ancestry to the Anglo-Saxon settlers who founded this nation. Obviously, you need to be white and of Anglo-Saxon descent. You can't just be of Anglo-Saxon descent. But what's funny is Ann Coulter basically kind of tells him, like, even the Black president we had, he was still of Anglo-Saxon descent, so you're not good enough. That's like, these conservatives of color think that they're so superior to Black people. not realizing that in the eyes of some of these ethno-nationalists on the far right, you're even lower than black people to them. You're even less American in their eyes than black people. And these are the same people who went kicking and screaming into a black man's presidency. A black man who was half white, who wasn't even a descendant of slaves. Conservatives, they swear to God they love African immigrants more than they love black Americans. They work so hard. They have such an amazing culture. And yet you're given an African president who's half white, and it's still a problem. They're kicking and screaming into the presidency. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's ridiculous. But hopefully Vivek realizes the situation he's in. She basically sat there and said, unless your bloodline mixes with the most original founding people of this nation, of the United States, I won't vote for a member of your family. Crazy.
So much. It's more, president is different. You have to be natural born, as you know, which, by the way, Ted Cruz is not, basically because of what you were just describing. Where is the loyalty? So ambassadors' children born actually in the United States are not natural born, but that's a total sidebar. I've gotten
It's actually not a sidebar at all. I mean, the fact that ambassadors' kids born in the United States are not citizens is actually an overlooked fact. If a kid of an ambassador from Mexico does not enjoy birthright citizenship, neither does somebody who's in this country illegally.
Yes.
Birthright citizenship either, right? So that's actually a quite important logical chain. But I go back to, forget even because you get to this constitutional, legalistic, and I like that stuff, but we'll just put that to one side for a second. But the essence of American identity, I think there's a part of you that believes, I think you basically said so, that part of that identity is tied to a certain Anglo-Saxon heritage of this country, and that you're more American if you've vested into that over the course of generations that are descended from that, rather than somebody who came here with a civic commitment to the country, went through the naturalization process, and then their kids may, in some real sense of the word, and the reason I respect you is that you actually have the, so to speak, the stones to be able to say it, is that you think that there's a difference in the status of the Americanness of that person. And that's where I think I disagree with you, but I want to give you the opportunity to air the case for that strand of national identity that I think we ought to just smoke out and be able to have a discussion about.
You know what's funny is, Vivek, basically what they're telling you, in case you don't get it enough, is you're good enough to die for this country, you're good enough to pay taxes to this country, but you're not good enough to lead it. These people don't mind your kids signing up to be Marines, Army infantry, Marine infantry. They don't mind your kids signing up to die for this country, but they can never be leaders of it in the minds of people like Coulter. You need to realize and recognize, because this is exactly what my ancestors went through in this country. Good enough to bleed and die for this nation, good enough to pay taxes, but not good enough to lead this nation. Good enough to die for it, good enough to bleed for it, and good enough to pay taxes for it, but not good enough to lead it. And that's exactly where you are right now. All of your own actions, by the way, it's not like you were born into a second-class citizen position like my predecessors were. You chose this. You chose to ingratiate yourself with people like Coulter. I don't feel bad for you at all. This is a funny interaction, but I will salute you, Vivek, for being tough. Vivek's not crying. He's not complaining. He's like, oh my God. He's taking it on the chin. I got to give it to him. He's a G. He's dumb, but he's a tough guy.
Well, the reason I mentioned the natural-born citizen is I'm only talking about President of the United States. So obviously the framers thought there was something different about being president, the one man who holds one entire branch of government in his hands. It isn't to say anything about who could be a Supreme Court justice, and they have a little more power than the president, by the way, or Secretary of State, or governor, or obviously senator, or any other position, but president, and I guess by extension, vice president. That is something that the framers did think was so important that you had this deep generation-wide loyalty. And why would they think that? Well, as many said at the time, freedom is a wonderful thing, but it's a very hard thing to learn. And one of the things, and I cite these polls in my book, Adios America, it's striking and depressing that lots of our very best immigrants just do not understand the Second Amendment. They do not get the First Amendment. And you take polls of them, should you have a right to bear arms? Should hate speech be banned? And it's noticeable that large percentages of immigrants and children of immigrants really don't get that. And I think that is the point of having natural born citizen only for president, that this is a really delicate thing we have, this freedom to bear arms and there be...
Well, the problem is she also needs to acknowledge that if you feel like immigrants and their children don't understand Americanism that well, which I'm sure there are polls out there that might be corroborating what she's saying, you would have to bar them from Congress too, because these people can pass laws. Like you would have to set it to where people that don't come from, you have to set it to where people who don't have a long lineage in this country cannot hold office. Like Ann Coulter, I think Ann Coulter has the balls to say it, but she needs to realize, like, you're swinging for the fences with what you're saying right now.
No such thing as hate speech, and it's just an additional little safeguard.
Here's my question for you on that is,
look, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, all right? Because Vivek Ramaswamy called Juneteenth a useless and redundant holiday.
Days left, but I think that the spirit of Juneteenth.
Going back to your election security plan, you said you wanted to have a holiday. You said maybe cancel Juneteenth or one of those other useless holidays. Do you think Juneteenth is a useless holiday?
I basically do. Yeah.
Do you think Memorial Day, Veterans Day are useless holidays?
I don't, because I stand with the presumption of time-tested traditions. Like I said, religion is, I call these things cults. I won't dignify them as religious because religions have withstood the test of time. And so I think that if we made a national commemorative holiday for everything that's important and happened in our history, we'd have no working days left. But I think that the spirit of Juneteenth will already channel into other holidays.
Oh my God!
Like Martin Luther King Day.
Yo, this man sat there and said that the spirit of Juneteenth is channeled through Martin Luther King's Day. So to Vivek, the freedom of slaves being freed, and people of all non-white races being equal citizens in this country are the same thing. It's basically the same thing. Well, Martin Luther King was black, the slaves were black. The end. You're crazy. You're crazy. And it's funny because you're kind of like leaning into Ann Coulter's point. You have literally zero respect for Black American history and culture. The spirit of Juneteenth is an MLK Day? Explain to me how these two things are in any way, shape, or form the same. Even when slaves were free, they still weren't equal citizens. It took another 150 fucking years. What are you talking about? But this guy actually thinks he understands America. This guy thinks he's American, which he is. But for someone who, this is the same guy who sat there and said that people shouldn't be allowed to vote at 18. They should only be able to vote at 25. And if they want to vote before 25, they need to pass a civics test or serve in the military. Excuse me, sir. But as someone whose family has been in this country for hundreds of years, I won't have my children being told they can't vote at 18 because someone whose family just got here has decided they can't vote until they're 25. Who are you? My bloodline has paid the price for my children to be able to vote at the age of 18. What are we talking about? But for this man to sit there and call Juneteenth a redundant holiday while saying that Veterans Day and Memorial Day they aren't useless or they aren't redundant. You do realize Veterans Day is to honor veterans and Memorial Day is to honor the veterans who have died in service of our country. Only a moron could argue that these two holidays are redundant. There's a difference. One is to honor veterans, dead or alive. The other is to honor all of those who have died in service of our nation. MLK Day is to honor a man who sacrificed his life for equality of all men in this country, voice crack, particularly men like you. Men like you. But Vivek, I don't think you remember, we fought a civil war that took we have not had a war yet that has killed as many American troops as the Civil War. And yet you're dumb enough to get in front of a camera and sit there and say, if we made a holiday about every significant event in American history, we'd be out of days. Are you dumb? Juneteenth is to symbolize the last slaves in the last bastion of slavery, Galveston, Texas. The last slaves who are unaware of their freedom, being informed of their freedom and being set free. The true ending of slavery. That to you is just another day in American history? Do you realize how many white men, because I know that's the only race of people you care about, do you know how many white men laid down their lives to reunify the Union? Do you realize how many white men laid down their lives in the Civil War so that black people could be free and to reunify the Union? Do you realize that? Do you also understand that black Americans themselves participated in the Civil War fighting for their freedom? To you, the product of that war being the freeing of slaves, to you, that's just synonymous with MLK Day and whatever. Are you serious right now? Are you actually serious? The spirit of Juneteenth is an MLK. Are you retarded? Are you dumb? So Memorial Day and Veterans Day, these days aren't redundant, but MLK Day and Juneteenth are. I would argue that neither are redundant. There should be an honoring of the veterans who serve us today and those who lost their lives in service of us in the past and in the present. There should be an honoring of the man who led the charge for equality for all Americans, in particular people like you, because people like you wouldn't be here if it weren't for my predecessors in this country being attacked by dogs, sprayed by water, beaten by cops, so you could sit there and be told by a white woman you can't be president because you're brown. The fact that you can even run for president as a brown man is particularly as a result of the sacrifices black Americans have made. And then you get up there and say that Juneteenth and MLK Day are basically, one is redundant to the other. The spirit of Juneteenth is an MLK Day. Sir, are you serious? Are you actually serious? Juneteenth is a useless holiday. I could never imagine myself, and this may be a Southern man thing, but I could never see myself going to India and letting my child get up in front of the Indian people and sit there and say, oh yeah, this particular Indian holiday that's in the works right now, yeah, it's useless. It's redundant. Show respect. Is that so hard to just show respect? But I don't feel bad for you, Vivek. I don't feel bad about the fact that Ann Coulter said those things to you. It's funny to me. And I don't think anybody should feel a lick of sympathy for you. You earned this by calling Juneteenth a useless holiday, suggesting that it's somehow synonymous with MLK Day and redundant. By you doing that, you knew what crowd you were attracting. You knew what kind of people you were pulling toward you. You knew. Kudos to you for not crying about it. Kudos to you for not complaining about it, but Ann Coulter did damage to you. Because there's a clip of you acting like white supremacy doesn't exist. I'm about to pull it up right after we finish this clip. Because I'm going to be fair to you and play the full clip in context. You're still wrong.
I think we can commemorate the spirit of that holiday separately. So I think that we shouldn't have redundant holidays that celebrate overlapping purposes. It should have a distinct purpose. And I think, let's be honest,
Memorial Day and Veterans Day, if in the mind of a moron, could be considered overlapping holidays. So why wouldn't you critique that? Oh, because white people would be upset. I swear to God, y'all are white people's, not even just white people. Y'all are specifically, not white people. You are racist white people's chess pieces. You're pawns. You are pawns on their board. You're pawns on their board. And sometimes it takes an Ann Coulter for you to realize that.
For making that a holiday was under political duress. It was a political hostage situation on the back of the death of George Floyd. And I think that should not be how we create holidays. We should not create holidays with a cultural gun to our head. And that's what happened with Juneteenth.
So because there's racial upheaval in America, the nation shouldn't make an attempt of goodwill and an attempt to ease tensions by passing a holiday in which everybody would be able to stop working. Election day I think election day should be a holiday, frankly. I agree with Vivek. Even if the government was doing it under political duress, that all of a sudden makes it a bad holiday, that all of a sudden makes it wrong. It's ridiculous. There should have been a holiday for the freeing of slaves. There should have been. There always should have been. from day one. There always should have been a holiday commemorating the fact that we ended slavery in our country. The freeing of one of America's most original ethnic groups. You got Black Americans, white Americans, and Native Americans. Why should that not be a holiday? There's always going to be police shootings and oh my God, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be racial issues popping off all the time. Do we just put off this holiday forever because, oh no, another black person was killed by a cop and black people are angry? Don't make Juneteenth a holiday because the black people are angry about a black man being shot by the police. When would there ever be an appropriate time to do it then, by your logic? But let's move on to the next thing. Let's move on to Vivek Ramaswamy saying that the white supremacy is equivalent to running into a unicorn.
I want to ask you about a comment that you made about white supremacy in Iowa on Friday.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner. And maybe those exist too.
So just because somebody hasn't encountered one doesn't mean that the notion of white supremacy doesn't exist as a threat in America. What do you think goes through the minds of the families of the 3 victims in yesterday's shooting when they hear you say that white supremacy is basically a fantasy?
I'm sure they're grieving for their loss, and I don't want to politicize those victims. Dana, this is a very sensitive situation where we should have nothing but foremost respect for those victims and not bring them into partisan politics. But I was responding to a question where someone asked me, what racism have I experienced in recent years? And I answered honestly, most of that racism has come from the modern left. As Americans.
Look, to be fair to Vivek, a lot of racism has come from the left. I'm not one of those crazy libtards who won't acknowledge the anti-white rhetoric coming from the left. I don't have a problem with doing that. I don't believe anti-whiteness is okay. I don't believe any form of racism is okay. But I think it's funny that he sat there and said, I've never ran into a white supremacist. I might run into a unicorn sooner. And then a white woman looks him dead in his face on that little live chat they're having and tells him, I wouldn't vote for you, even though you're the perfect candidate because you're brown. This man then sits there in front of Dana and says, I don't want to politicize the deaths of these people. I don't want to politicize their deaths. Sir, you're running for president. You are running for president of the United States. You, having sat there and said white supremacy is equivalent to running into a unicorn, you need to acknowledge that if you're going to be president of this country, after these people were shot and killed by a white supremacist, you need to acknowledge the existence of it. Has this man never heard of Dylan Roof? What are we talking about? There needs, bro, you can't just sit there and dance around it. I don't want to politicize their deaths. No, sir, you want to lead this country. You will discuss this. You will address this. Talking about white supremacy is like a unicorn. What the fuck? What are you talking about? You don't have to lie. But no, you actually do. You do have to lie to white conservatives to get their vote as a brown person. You can't be real with white conservatives and say, yeah, racism is a problem in this country and we're working toward a better tomorrow. You have to sit there and lie. There's no such thing. I've never ran into one. Unicorn. You have to act like a moron. You have to act like an idiot, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this man has to act like an idiot in order to receive their votes. I don't feel bad for Vivek Ramaswamy in the slightest. Not one bit. Not one bit do I feel bad for him in any capacity. Vivek Ramaswamy has earned exactly what he was looking for. You wanted to be accepted by, embraced by, racist white conservatives. You called Juneteenth a useless holiday. You said white supremacy is basically like running into a unicorn. Basically impossible to find anymore. It's done. It's gone. And then when confronted with the reality that it's still here after 3 people are killed by a white nationalist shooter in America, you don't want to acknowledge what you said in the context of you running for president. You want to be able to run away from it. I don't feel bad for Vivek. I don't feel bad for him. And when he runs for office again, which he will be confronted by the fact that, hey, this woman told you she doesn't want you to be president because you're brown. Do you finally acknowledge the racist white supremacist undercurrent within the GOP? If you say no, you're a liar, because we saw it happen to you on camera. If you say yes, they're not going to vote for you anymore. Cue the victim mentality. Oh, Vivek has victim mentality. Vivek's so soft. Cue those comments, because if you decide to tell the truth, they're going to kick you out. This is what happens when you choose to ingratiate yourself with white nationalists and white supremacists. My relationship with white people is amazing. I'm a fan of white people, frankly. And it's not only amazing, but it's also healthy. I don't need racist white people to like me. I'm black. That's all they see. They can't see anything beyond that, and that's okay. I'm not here to police them. I'm not here to change their mind. Frankly, the world would be boring if everyone was a goody two-shoe. However, I'm not going to ingratiate myself with them. I'm not going to try to endear myself to them. I'm not going to embolden them. I'm not going to deny their negative and reprehensible actions and statements. I'm not going to be doing that at all, in any way, shape, or form. But this is a reminder to you and every other conservative of color who tries to ingratiate themselves with white racists by shitting on black Americans. Your time is coming. And I'm not going to step in and do none to save you. Frankly, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they already made the sacrifice. They already fought for civil rights. I'm not about to speak up for y'all. No, you made your decision. It's a free country. No, I don't feel bad for people like Vivek Ramaswamy at all. I really don't. I just don't. I can't bring myself to care. Welcome to the States, buddy. Like, I just don't feel bad. You know what I mean? You don't want to acknowledge white supremacy? All right, cool. Like, it's coming for you. It's coming for you. You chose to ingratiate yourself with this crowd. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen, G? And a lot of conservative voters feel the exact same way. They just can't say it to you. But those poll numbers show the truth. Those delegate numbers show the truth, G. Despite the fact that you're incredibly articulate, charismatic, you're not very smart in terms of foreign policy or even domestic policy. But you're pretty, like, in terms of a populist candidate, you're the perfect guy. Like, if I were a Republican, I'd vote for you, G. But you're brown. And a lot of them don't want you to be in office because you're brown. Reminder, buddy, they went kicking and screaming into a presidency of a black man who was half white. Just a reminder in case you forgot. So I think this clip was hilarious. I think Ann Coulter was hilarious. I don't see why people are getting mad at Ann Coulter. Oh, by the way, reminder. Ann Coulter said something really interesting one time. She basically said, like, oh, immigrants in America shouldn't be complaining about racism that much because they're not black. They signed up to be here. Like, Vivek, you need to realize, in the eyes of some of these white supremacists, you're even lower than black people. Just a reminder, because that's a really important one as well. You're even less in their eyes than black people. And the sooner you realize and recognize that, the better it will be for you. But I'm just telling you, bro, like, and you're in a bad spot right now because, you need these people's votes, but people are going to ask you about this the next time you run for office. You're going to have to address this. And if you don't address it head on and directly and honestly, people are going to call you a liar because we all saw it on camera. And it's ironic. You sat there and said you never met a white supremacist, and me neither. Well, not really. There's one in my gym, but that's besides the point. You said you've never met a white supremacist. Basically because you never met one or ran into one, it must not be real. I've never met a white person that hates black people in my life. Never. I've never met one. There's a white supremacist at my gym. He's got the tattoos and everything, but I've never I don't know. He might be nice for all I know. I've never actually formally met one, but I know they're out there. I just know. Which reminds me, this is kind of like that time that Dinesh D'Souza was like, Trump needs to distance himself from white supremacy. And then Nick Fuentes went on this massive rant about Indians because Dinesh D'Souza stepped out of line. See what happens when you try to ingratiate yourself with these white supremacists? You're just a piece on the board to these people, G. You're just a pawn on the board. Realize and recognize. But it's too late for people like you. And by people like you, I don't mean brown people. I mean people like you who are people of color who choose to ingratiate themselves with racist conservatives. There's nowhere for you to go now. You can't come over here. No, you can't come over here. And you can't dig your heels in deeper over there because they just exposed you. Ann Coulter will be fine. She's always been saying crazy stuff. It's Ann Coulter. She's like the Kanye West of conservatives. Like, she's crazy. She has forced you now to not only acknowledge racism, but to bear the brunt of it. So, Vivek's a tough guy. If he were smart, he'd walk away from politics, bro. Your plan for ending the war in Ukraine was disgusting. You're a foreign policy retard. You should never touch Congress in life. You're worse than nah. You're probably not as bad as Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nah. But you're up there. You're up there for sure. But good luck. Good luck ingratiating yourself with the WASPs. I don't know how that one's gonna go. I don't know too many nationalist WASPs, but I know WASPs. You know what I'm saying? I know them. Been around them. The best I can say for you, Vivek, is good luck, G. You're going to need that. You're going to need that luck, bro. Keep it in the 100 with you. You're going to need that luck because they don't want you to be president. And they don't want you to be vice president either. But you might be, because Kristi Noem tanked her vice presidency or whatever. So we'll see what happens to you. But keep your fingers. Vivek might be VP. It's possible. Trump might go for the diversity angle. It's very possible. So we'll have to see what happens. But like, comment, subscribe, and stay black. That's what matters. I'm out.